Hi, this is Angie Williams in the Mizpah Pottery Studio. So today we are going to make a three-legged mug. A three-legged mug, you say, I know, but there's just something about a three-legged mug that I like because you're a little bit more intimate with it. You get to hold it a little bit differently. And with the handle, it's kind of standoffish and it takes a little bit more room in your cupboard. So today we are going to use speckled brown clay again, which is my favorite. And this is how it's going to be after we bisque fire it. And then this is going to be how it looks afterwards. We glaze the inside, but not so much on the outside. So hope you stick with us and learn a little bit about three-legged mugs. So let's get started. All right, you guys ready? We are going to start with our three-legged mug. So today the tools that we're going to use are our spinning wheel. And if you guys can find, I really like this. It's the Kraft small mayonnaise jar, but it gives me the right circular part that I really like for the mug. And so you can just impress it that way. And you'll want to whirl it around a little bit. Or, you can get anything else that's circular, but you gotta try to just find something that fits in the space that we're gonna be doing here. So, and then our rib tool, of course, our knife, and our handy dandy brushes. So we're gonna use those today as well. So not a lot of tools, and of course, a little bit of your water that you have, and of course I have some leftover clay in here, but as you guys know, I don't use a lot of slip with my stuff. And today the clay is gonna be kind of moist anyway, so we really don't need to use a lot of slip at all. So that is it for our tools. So let's move these little items aside and we can kind of get started on that. And I will use the wheel in a little bit. So I went down to the slab roller and got a piece of clay for us. And as you guys know, the slab roller is a great way to it's very costly though, but it's a great way to roll out your stuff if you don't have the wooden dowel type of things that you guys might have at home to use. But and this is approximately 4.5 by about a 10.5. Well, it's almost 11 inches right there. So that's what we're going to use. And so if you guys want to, you can just get some construction paper out and use this. And we're just going to use this as our template for our three-legged mug. So the first thing that we're going to do is, well, I'm just going to transfer this. And remember how we pick up clay? We don't use our fingertips because we don't want to indent into the clay, because that's just going to make it horrible for us to try to get that out. So you just use the palms of your hands, and then we're going to use our rib tool, whoops, to get started. So here we go. Again, and as you know, as we kind of go with our rib tool, again, we just kind of feather it along, whisk it along really easy breezy, and try to find any of those air bubbles. I probably won't have too many air bubbles because last time, as you know, I used leftover clay that we had used from a previous demonstration. So I don't have probably it's not going to be very airy in here today, but you still want to whisk it and really check out any air bubbles, kind of like a speed bump. Remember, a little speed bump of air. And before we got started, I did use my other tool here and just kind of swiped the board clean. But again, I like a little dust on my board because then the clay doesn't stick, and it's kind of like using Pam or flour or cornstarch, but I don't know that I've probably ever washed these boards too much. When you are getting your clay ready, just try to recognize the shape that you need. So again, we're doing something that's a little bit more rectangular. So when you prepare your clay, make it rectangular, or if you're doing more something that's rounded to begin with, like a vase that we did those cross vases earlier. We used 2 templates, but they were rounded templates. So when you're forming your clay, it's really easier to just form your clay to the template that you're using. If we did a rounded one here, it would take an enormous amount of clay to get a rounded pattern for a rectangle template, if that makes sense. So again, what I like to do is I like to just kind of make sure we use as much of the clay as possible without going right in the center, because we might want to use the rest of that clay a little later on. So just want to clean off my knife a little bit, because you guys know that I don't clean my tools either. So, okay, so we're going to go straight up and down with our knife. Again, we're just putting the tip of the knife to the board and following along pretty slowly. I'm not pressing down on the template either, because we don't want to thin the clay as we go along. So this is about 1/4 inch deep as far as the clay itself. So if you guys are doing rolling out your own clay with your cookie rollers, your rolling pins, you might want to just get some dowels that are about 1/4 size high, because that's mostly what all of the clay is in thickness, I guess you want to say, when you're making anything. So okay, so again, we are going to put these all aside into a bag like we've talked about before, so that they don't dry out. And I don't really have a bag here handy dandy with me, so okay, so that is our template, and we did both sides. So now what we're going to do is we are going to, again, curve it like we did with our vase. So if you guys were in our last demonstration, what you do with that is you do a 45-degree angle, keeping the point of your nose of your knife on the board. And I'm just going to start here on this side. And remember, you go halfway through the depth of your clay. So just kind of keep your eye on it and keep that tip to the bottom. And just kind of hold it over there like that. So kind of keeps your clay kind of square. Just lift it up, and so you can see that we did that 45-degree angle, and that's kind of what it looks like. And then this is the leftover part of it. So now we're going to do the same thing over here, but we're going to do it opposite of what we just did. So just to pull it out a little bit. So now we're going to do it this way. So we did it this way here. We're doing it this way here. And again, we're just going to do halfway through, keeping your tip of the blade down on the board and just going across, just kind of eyeballing it so it's halfway in the clay that you're cutting, and strip it away. And there you can see that we did that as well. So now I'm taking my scoring tool that you have right here, and again, you can score it with this, or you can just use a knife, right? And with the scoring tool, it's just really quick and easy like that. Or if you don't have a scoring tool, you can just use your knife, and again, just make just some lines. You don't have to get real fancy. And this clay is moist. It came right out of the high water clay box. I love high water clay. That's the only thing that I use. And we are going to put this in a circular. So again, we are going to just match it up. So I'm not going to use any water or any slip because this is so moist already. So we're just going to go ahead and just marry these up. And again, you don't want to press down a whole lot. You're just trying to marry those up even Steven as much as you can. Whoops. Whoopsie daisies. And just press down just a tad to marry those up. Again, not using a lot of pressure. You don't want fingerprints in there or anything like that. So we're just marrying those up like so. Okay, so now what we want to do is just kind of grab the inside like that, flip it a little bit. And this, it looks huge, doesn't it? This mug looks so big, but it's not going to be, because remember, clay shrinks as it dries, and then it shrinks some more when it gets into the kiln. And because we are using high fire clay, we are bisque firing all of our pieces first, which is about 1888 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when we glaze it, gosh, it gets to be about 2100, something like 2200 degrees. So, okay, so now that we have this, it's kind of done like that, we are going to use our little mallet that we have. So I guess another tool that we have. And you don't want to get it soaking wet, so just kind of dap it off. And what we're going to do again right here is we're going to just bring this up and over, supporting the inside of our mug. So I'm going to put it on my spinner wheel that I love and supporting it here. So again, what I like to do is I kind of like to go at an angle. Hopefully you guys can see this. But what we're doing is we're just bringing the clay over the top of it like so. So just moving it from the left side where it's got the hump, you know, it's seamed over to the left hand side. If you can see that. And you know, I'm making this seamless as much as possible. It's up to you if you guys want to keep your seam in there, but again, you're still going to have to cross it over so that it doesn't pull apart once it hits the kiln. So you can't just, you know, have it showing so much like that. You do have to cross it over. The other thing that you can do too is you can just leave a pattern, so you can show all your textures and stuff like that when you were kind of glazing it over. I'm just going to get my hands just a tad wet, not a whole bunch again, because we don't want this super wet because it will fall apart on us, sadly to say. Then just, you know, take your little fingers and run over the top of that seam as well. Okay, so now that we have that done, you can see we still have a seam inside. So we're going to take our little mallet and again, just get it wet just so it doesn't stick, but not adding water to it. And doing the same thing, but again, we have to support the outside. And you are just going to go inside and again, cross it over from the thicker part to the thinner part. And the clay is so nice and moist, doesn't take much time at all. I will say that if you are having some clay and it starts getting dried out, you know, it's starting to become a little bit leather hard in the bag that you have, just get a spritzer and just spritz your clay as much as you want. And if you have it in a, if it's already in a block, you know, like they come in blocks from the manufacturer, you can go ahead and spritz both sides, and then you can poke it with our Chinese eating tool, like I love. Just poke holes in it, and that lets the water go into those holes to soften up your clay. Wrap it really tightly, put it back into a couple of bags just to kind of keep it moist. And then next time you go in there to get that, it will be moist, just like a brand new piece of clay, and it will be very pliable. So, okay, so I think we've got that pretty much done. And just needs a little bit more help in here. It's kind of hard with the camera to kind of see everything that you're doing. And speaking of cameras, by the way, I just got a new iPhone 12 Pro Max or something. I'll tell you what, I have a lot of data. It took me 11 hours and then it still wasn't uploaded, and it took me another 7. So it was quite a day yesterday, I tell you. But this is our first video on our new iPhone, so I will be excited to see how it all turns out. Okay, so now we have seamless, sort of, kind of. Just bring that over just a little bit more. I just don't like seams in my stuff, so that's just how I am. Okay. And we're going to be manipulating that all this little bit later as well. So once you have that all done, now what we are going to do is the fun part. So you got to find your seam, just like we did on the cross bowl. You have to find your seam, because what we're going to do is now we are going to squish it into this. So what you have to do is you have to just kind of make your hand go into a triangular shape like that, and we're going to just squish in the indentations, but you don't want to squish in where the seam is at. and let the seam poke out over here because it's probably going to split. So you just have to be very careful about where your seam is at. So that's what we're going to do. So here's my seam, and this is tricky, so it might take us a couple of times to get it right, but so this is where my seam is at. So if I end up squishing it this way, this is going to poke out, you know, so I just got to try to make sure that I am putting my triangular piece where that is not going to happen. And again, it takes a minute to figure all this out. So if I go like that, kind of bows there. So I want to go more like this. So I want to kind of squish it in a little bit more this way. Just trying to get off of that seam as much as possible. Now you're just doing the bottom portion. You're not squishing the whole element down here, right? So you just squish and squish and squish, and you just kind of, it is on the seam a little bit, but hopefully it will be fine. You're just kind of bringing all of them in together at the same time so that they kind of meet up in a little triangular kind of way. And then we are going to fill in that hole in the triangle part of this. So don't worry about that there's going to be a little bit more of a gap right there. So, because we are going to fill that in. But right now, so what we do is we just kind of push the pieces together like this. All right, and then this one, just bring it up a little bit so that they're kind of even right here. Just kind of bring those together like that. Very good, very good. I know you guys are doing an excellent job out there. And do that. And now they're not going to be perfect, you know. This is hand building, right? So nothing is perfect, but we get it as perfect as we like. So then what we're going to do is we are going to just kind of cross these over onto each other to kind of keep it forming a little leg. This is really a simple way to make a vase, you know, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Just that part of bringing it together at the bottom just is a little bit, you know, questionable sometimes about how to bring it all together. But and then what we're going to do is we are going to flip this over just really quickly, just so that our feet are matched up. We don't want a tipsy-turvy coffee mug. Heaven's sakes, we don't want hot coffee all over us. Okay, so now you can see we have a little triangular spot, which we're going to fix in a minute. So right now, just take your pieces up like that and set it down. Okay, now look at that, it's perfect. So inside you can see you got your little triangle piece, but you also have some indentations as well. So we're going to work on all of that in a minute. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I do want you to take a piece of your leftover clay that we had a minute ago and just squish it around and make sure you have enough. This isn't not big enough, so I'm going to get a little bit more. So we're going to fill that little triangle hole right there. And I'm just going to get a little bit more water because I did not have this in a bag. So you can just make it, you know, about the same quarter size, just like we did before with this. Make it into, yeah, probably a quarter, you know, quarter size, like a, you know, coin of a quarter. All right, and then just kind of place it down there and see if it works. Yeah, pretty much covers it. I just want to make it just a tad more wider. Okay, so then you just place it on there. Looks good. And again, because it is so moist, I don't really need to score it at all. So Put it on there. Okay, so then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna tap down into that hole just a little bit, not a whole lot, just to kind of give it a little sinkhole so that I can kind of manipulate it around. So on this, you can keep it if you like, just like that, but of course I like to kind of just smooth mine out a little bit. And this is what the finished pieces look like afterwards. So that's kind of what I like to do with mine. So just get a little bit more water on my hands, and you're gonna just do this really gently because you do not want to squish down your legs that you just made. And again, the clay is really super soft, so any type of really gouging is really going to impact your mug a little bit. So just quickly and lightly go down around. If you need to, you know, you can just use your little thing like that. It goes over it pretty nice. Smooth it out. And you also want to tap down there a little bit too, because again, we don't want air bubbles because it will pop off in the kiln. Now, you can see that that doesn't look like it was really attached at all. There's no really lines in here anymore. It looks kind of like it's all one piece, which I love. And it's great in the winter, you know. You can just wrap your fingers around here with a cup of hot coffee or hot chocolate, or even just, you know, a glass of milk or juice. Maybe something a little bit more adult. I don't know, has a little bit more of adult flavor to it. You guys use your imaginations. Okay, so there you go. Here is our finished piece like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just let this relax for a little bit, and we're gonna come back and we are going to expand the inside for it to come out a little bit more. All right, so stay tuned and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, well, welcome back. So your piece has had a little chance to dry. And what we're gonna do now is we are going to fill in the holes and the little slips in here. So if you can get out a little bit of your extra clay that you have and just, and I have already done that, but just again, kind of get it into a ball. We're gonna make, you know, you guys have made worms before and stuff like that. So you're gonna make yourself a worm. And the best thing to do with that is get your fingers kind of wet. And the best way is to use this part of your hand to roll it out on, because otherwise you actually kind of starts going into like a squarish type of thing, and you don't want that. You want it to be rounded. So when you're doing it, just use your fingers to kind of move it out and about, and just use that part of it and just kind of slide your hands over it and keep moving it out like that. But you want to keep your hands moist, because as you are rolling, the moisture of the clay is seeping into your board or whatever else you have, your fabric or whatever else you might be using. So you just want to keep your hands wet and just kind of move your fingers out as you go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use your brush, and I have a couple of different sizes here, so you just get whichever one works for you in the moment in time of what you're doing on your piece. So we are going to fill this in. So I want to get just a little dampness, and I'm going to put it down here in the corners. Okay, so because the if you can see that with the light, these all have a little bit of a hole, so we are going to cover those up. So just kind of wring your brush out and just get it just a little moist in there. Again, your piece should still be not even leather hard yet. You know, we were just away for maybe 5 minutes or so. And we're just going to get this just a tad wet in here. Okay, so now I want you, and the piece should be rather small. We don't want big hunks of your snake or your worm, because then there's just too much clay to move around, and we're not looking for a lot of clay down there. We're just looking for a little bit to put in little strips in here to seal this up. And the reason that we're doing that too is when you're having, you know, your coffee, you don't want your coffee to be in here all by itself and seeping down into those crevices, because then you're going to get germs and everything like that. So it's not a good idea to keep this without having it down there. So we are just putting this down in there like that, and I'm just kind of showing you so that we can, and you take your brush and you are scooching it down into that hole in that leg. Okay, so the closer you put the top of your snake into that hole, the better. And then you're just gonna work this seam like this. And if you need to, you can take, a little bit of a tool and kind of poke it down in there a little bit more if your brush doesn't poke it down in there for you. And just kind of spread it around that way. Okay? And then again, you don't want your brush soaking wet, you just want it damp so that it moves. We want it to move. And to make it seamless, you're going to have to go up on the legs itself as well. And this is why you don't want a lot of clay on these parts, because it's just going to take a little bit longer to fill that in. When you get to the triangle part in here, just push down this hunk of clay that you got going in here as well to kind of fill that hole. And it goes up the other side. And you can always add, add more clay to your piece. And if you have a nice little tool, you can get down in there with your tool, smooth it out as much as you need to, come up the sides, because again, you're trying to make this seamless. You're trying not to get any coffee or any of your, anything else in that. So you're just kind of making this seamless. And then we're going to go up this other side right here. Same thing. Just kind of fill it up as you go. And you want to poke it down in there because you want it to stick to the bottom of that mug right there that we just made. This is probably the most tedious part of making this particular mug, but it's well worth it. Okay, so that looks pretty good there. We are glazing this on the inside too, so that glaze will fill up a lot of the holes as well. So, okay, and then for me, I just need another little piece snug down in there. So, and again, I don't want to use a whole lot, just a nice little piece. And I'm holding it from the bottom up, so if you guys are holding yours too, make sure you're supporting your legs. Okay, so I've got that piece down in there like that. I'm just mushing it down. And if you want to, if you have too much, you can just kind of cut off a piece and just bring it up like so. When I teach this class, the ladies absolutely love the three-legged mug. Of course, they're usually having a lot of wine when they're doing it too, so that's always helpful, right? That's always helpful. Okay, so I'll let you guys continue working on that, and we'll be back in a minute. All right. Now, hopefully you guys have accomplished that as well. So this is the middle of that. I did use a little bit bigger of a brush to kind of just smooth it out just a little bit more. So if you guys have a little bit bigger brush, again, don't make it soaking wet, just kind of smooth it out. And again, we're gonna have glaze in here, so this you just really want to get out any sharp edges, because when you are washing your dishes or again, not having some coffee or something in your mug, you don't want sharp edges, right? So that's kind of what that looks like inside. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to bellow out the circular part of it. So we are gonna, like we did with our vase, we are going to just put our hands in here in a certain way and just we're gonna rise up and stretch it out. And again, we are going to define the rim as well, because this is terrible right now, right? You don't want to put your lips on that. So we are going to define this by just squeezing it a little bit and curving it over and making it about this size. Okay, so let's take care of that. So first we are going to, and you know, you just want to keep eyeballing it, making sure it's a circle. So right now we are going to, again, it's kind of still kind of wet, hopefully. If not, just add a little bit of moisture to your hands. So we are going to, you can see this is kind of just straight up. We're going to bellow this out and give it a belly. And again, just kind of start where you want your belly to be, like in the middle, and come up and again supporting it on the outside. And you're just stretching your clay up like this. So, and you want to make sure that you're looking at it as you're spinning it, because you want all of your, you know, the sides of your pot to be similar in a belly. You know, you don't want one side of your belly to be not sticking out farther than the other one. So here we kind of go. And just, you know, keep an eye on your seam as well, so that the seam is not bursting. And hopefully you can flip it over and see that you didn't split that down there as well while you guys were putting the rest of your snakes down in there. So just stretch out our belly. Okay. And once you have that stretched out, again, we are going to, you can kind of see it's poking out a little bit more than it was before. And I am really doing only halfway down and coming up. So just I take these two fingers here and I just put them right halfway up, and I'm just pulling up just slightly. I'm not indenting with my fingers. I'm just grabbing and pulling it up from there. And do not make it soaking wet with your, you know, with water, anything like that. Just barely have anything on your hands, just to kind of make it slip up. Okay, so now you can see it's a little bit different. It's got a little bit bellow to it, right? Looks kind of nice. So now what we're going to do is we are going to do lip service. We're going to give it some lip service. So again, you just squeeze it a little bit here. Get your fingers a tad damp, and you're squeezing it to compress that clay, and then just kind of rounding it off as you go. You see that, how different that is than just like over here. So that's what we want to do, and just kind of make it consistent all the way around. Okay, so now once you have that done, we are going to do like we did before. Just take your thumb and we're going to flip in your lid a little bit, so that when you're drinking, it's not just going to spill all over you. So we want to just kind of do this and bring this in a little bit, your lip a little bit, so it gives it a little bit more of a form for a mug. All right. 3 times for me is about good. Kind of does that. All right. So now we do have like this little bitty hump here where the seam was again. So just like we've done before, just kind of take that off and just give it a little bit more of a curve appeal. Okay. So now that we have that done, we are ready to work on our outside. So find the place that you like on your mug. Maybe it's in between the legs, or maybe it's over a leg. I kind of like to go in between my legs. Well, that doesn't sound right. That didn't sound right at all. And you can look and see if you need a little bit more bellowing as well as you kind of go around. So I think I like this part right over here. So I am going to take my lid, and I'm gonna put a little bit of cornstarch on it again, so we don't want it to stick. So just put a little cornstarch on my board. Whoa, there's a lot of cornstarch on my bowl. Okay. And I'm gonna press it on the inside again, like this. And I'm bringing it just a 1/4 inch down from the top. And I'm just laying it on there, and then I'm just pressing it in a little bit, holding it from the inside out. And again, just making sure you're not going in too far. You're just making it so there's an impression in your clay all the way around. So stick your hand way down in there where the lid is. You can kind of feel it moving. And there. That's how that is. Okay? And then you might want to, go back over it and give yourself more of a belly again, because it's kind of poked in from there. Okay, so now what you can do is anything that you want to do. On here, you made an ocean scene, because this is where I used to live, and I used like a pen, bottom of a pen, and just added some lines. But just be creative and do anything that you want to right there. So what I'm going to do is, now that I live back in the mountains, what I am going to do is I'm going to do kind of the same thing. We do have a lake around here as well, but we have, beautiful mountains here. So, well, I don't know if I call them mountains, but they could just be hills. And then, you can also like put some trees in here. I think I'll just put like a thing of water down here, because we are surrounded with a few little lakes. And then I think up here too, I will do a little bit of a impression of a sunshine or something like that. So let's see. Yeah, this is good. The bottom of a pen, and just want to impress it a little bit like that. And then you can, add lines if you want, or you can just do that later with your glazes. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to probably write down here the city, and also on the bottom, don't forget to write your name or sign it, not exactly on the leg where it's going to rest, but right there. You can put your initials or whoever this is going to. So I'm putting Mizpah. And again, Mizpah means, may God watch over you while we are apart. So that is today's class, everybody. And I will see you on our next one. So I hope you like it, and share it with others. Add a comment if you have a comment about it as well. And I hope you subscribe to this channel so that you and I will meet up again on our next venture together. So thanks for joining us, and I'll see you guys again next time. Mizpah. So some of you have inquired about Mizpah and how that all started. So I thought I would just tell you a quick little story. So about in 2005, I guess it was, I started my Mizpah pottery business, and I had just started to love it and decided that I wanted to give it a name. And I was driving home from work, corporate America, and had wondered, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna call it? So all of a sudden, I realized that my grandmother had a big part in my creativity. And when I was a little girl, gosh, even as an adult, she would write me letters and sign them, and she would say, love and Mizpah, Grandma. I never knew what Mizpah meant until I was much, much older. And of course, it means may God watch over you while we are apart. And because she was such a big part of my life, and that just sounded right one day, Mizpah Pottery. So this is my grandmother and I, long, long time ago. But she is a precious part of my life and my pottery. So in every piece that I create, I put a cross in the piece, because she was such a good Christian woman, and that's what Mizpah represents. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this story, and she's with our Heavenly Father now as well. But love and Mizpah to all of you as well.